Okay, I want to talk about One Piece a little bit. If you are not caught up on the manga, then go catch up because I'm going to be covering spoilers. That's the only warning I'm putting out. Okay, so I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about Shanks, and I want to talk about Luffy's Devil Fruit power. The reason I want to talk about his Devil Fruit is because when I first started reading the series, um, and this is like long ago. I want to say 15 years ago. It was a long time ago that I started reading One Piece. And I wasn't as invested in it then as I am now. So there's a lot of things I know now that come as second nature that at the time when I was a newbie reading it, I didn't really put together. So even though at some point in the story early on, I think in the Alabasta arc, they explain the difference between a Zoan, a Paramecia, and a Logia. It might actually the explanation might come before that, but that's as early as I remember anyway. But so anyway, once I had the Logia devil fruit explained to me, I was like, oh, it's just you're the element, right? Whatever element it is, right? Whether it be smoke like smoker or fire or magma or you're the element. And so my brain, I was just like, oh, that means duh, Luffy's a Logia type because he's rubber. He is the element of rubber. Smoke isn't an element. It's just like it's a substance, just like what's his face is the gas fruit guy. Gas is so unbelievably ambiguous. What do you mean gas? Are you oxygen? Are you hydrogen? What gas are you? Right? Luffy is the rubber, the gum guy. He's made of rubber. So I thought, like, and even now when I explain that aloud, it makes sense to me. So it's not that I think that past me was stupid. I just think past me was less informed. So even though in the manga they identified Luffy as a Paramecia user, I was like, no, he's Logia. Like, they've made a mistake. He's a Logia. So the story continues on, and you see the way other people's devil fruit powers are like interact with the world. So like Whitebeard has to like punch something and it creates like cracks in reality that earthquake everything, right? And you have people like oh, come on now, Bartholomew Kuma, who he hits something and he blasts it away. Okay, the Paramecia type seems to be, oh, I do something and it like conjures the material, like Flamingo. He has strings. The strings aren't part of him, but he has strings that he can like throw out, right? He isn't a string. He throws strings. But Luffy is rubber. He doesn't throw rubber. He doesn't conjure rubber out of nothingness like a gas man or a smoker would. He is the rubber. So I was like, okay, guaranteed Luffy is a Logia devil fruit. So that was my explanation to myself. So even though the manga said Paramecia, I thought Logia. And it's just very very strange to me that my instant reaction to the devil fruit types was, oh, he must be Logia, and nobody else seemed to think this. None of my friends thought that. None of my family who reads it thought that. Nobody I know, even all the reviewers online, nobody thought that he was a Logia type. And I was like, am I just fundamentally not understanding what Logia means? Because every single time I see a Logia type, I'm like, yes, that's what Luffy is. Ace is a fireman, and Akainu is a magma man, and Kizaru is a light man, and Luffy's a rubber man. Like, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but every time I like tried to logic it out to my brain, I was like, duh, Luffy is a rubber man. He's a Logia rubber type. And so, like I said, spoiler alert. Oh, I said I wouldn't say that again, but anyway, very recently we learned, oh, he's actually a Zoan type. And I was like, whoa. Hold the phone. It like broke my brain because then I was like, is he all three? Is that why his devil fruit is so special? Because he's all three? So then I sat there and I was like, okay, how is he a Paramecia type? I don't know. I honestly, I have no idea how he's a Paramecia type. The Logia explanation makes sense to me, and the mythical Zoan sense makes sense to me. But the paramecia, which is the type he was labeled as for like 800, 900 chapters, 1,000 chapters, whatever it was that it was revealed that he had this Zoan type. 1,000 chapters of the manga, we thought he was a paramecia type, just because we were told that. So now I'm currently in my current state of existence. I'm like, oh, he's all of them. Like you have characters like Blackbeard, who has an odd body where he can like take corpses. I'm not sure if they have to be dead. He seems to always kill them, but I can't remember if there's an instance where he takes a power and leaves the person alive. But regardless, he can take multiple devil fruit powers, right? So there's this interesting aspect of Blackbeard that he's like this unique individual that makes him super dangerous because he can take any two kinds of devil fruit, at least two. Like they're kind of ambiguous with the devil fruit powers that he can hold. Like they say like he has a strange body type. He can attain more than one devil fruit. But what does that mean? Does that mean he can attain anything beyond one? Or does that mean he can attain only two? Like he maxes out at two? Like all this time that he's been going around hunting for devil fruit powers, does he actually have like 600 devil fruit powers? Like I don't know how it works. It's very strange to me. But so anyway, this isn't about Blackbeard. This is about Luffy's devil fruit, and it sort of blends into a Shanks theory that I'll get into in just a second. But the idea though is just like it's just very crazy to me that it makes sense if Blackbeard. I don't know who the ultimate antagonist is meant to be, because we have characters like Blackbeard, we have characters like obviously the Navy with that Kainu, and then you have the those 5 old guys with King Emu. So I don't. That's what I call him. But anyway, so yeah, I don't really know who the grand antagonist is. But if ultimately it comes down to a Blackbeard versus Luffy situation, it would make perfect sense, because Blackbeard would be like, "Holy crap! Like I can steal your devil fruit, and your devil fruit has all 3 powers." But maybe just the nature of the devil fruit, if he tries to take the power, it would kill him. Maybe Blackbeard knows that. Maybe Blackbeard has like because Blackbeard and Shanks, all these different older characters who aren't ancient like Whitebeard, but are old enough to like be the middling generation. They seem to have a lot of ultimate knowledge, right? And so something like how does Blackbeard know that he has a unique body that can take 2 devil fruits? That implies that he's a special kind of race. Like a humanoid race that just all of the people of his race can do this. Or maybe it's something else. Like why do people know this? Like this isn't like, I don't understand. That's a weird piece of information for him to know about himself. Oh, you know what? I know I can take multiple devil fruits because I have a special body. What? The only way you could possibly know if you could handle multiple devil fruits is if you stupidly tried to eat a second one after eating the first one. You know what I mean? Like, and then accidentally you're like, oh, I didn't die. I can do multiple devil fruit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the logic breakdown doesn't make any sense. And unfortunately, like, if it does make sense, then I missed it. But like, there's like no explanation as to why Blackbeard knows he has a special body, which allows him to then really wreak havoc with his shadow no mi, or whatever he calls it. But so anyway, so the idea of having this Luffy devil fruit that is all 3 of them is interesting. So let's talk about Luffy now. Let's Blackbeard, get out of here. So we have my notes here. I said maybe you can't access like the mythical Zoan type unless you've awakened your fruit, or unless you die. Maybe the cost of awakening it is you must die at some point. And in dying, does that like affect Luffy's body in some capacity? We have no idea, right? We have no idea. He might have a weird special body like Blackbeard. Who knows? But Like maybe the activation requirement was Luffy must die in order for this Zoan type to awaken. So if I look at my other notes here for Shanks, because that's all I can really say on the Luffy topic. So here's my Shanks theory. I'm not sure if this is a theory that exists out there. I don't go on Reddit or anything, so I'm pretty much in the dark when it comes to theories. But here's my line of logic. Shanks knew that the Gum Gum fruit was important, right? Like according to chapter 1, they just took it from an enemy ship. But according to a later chapter, and the reason why it's important is because Ichiro Oda, the author of this story, said in an interview at some point that he's had the entire story mapped out from day one. Like he's known the story the whole time. So it's not like he makes changes along the way. And he might make minor changes, of course. Any writer would. But what I'm talking about is like major story beats, like the importance of this devil fruit. And he's a very thoughtful writer, so it's like it's not just a coincidence that they're saying we took this from an enemy ship, and then later on, way later on, we get a flashback from Shanks' perspective of him taking the devil fruit. Does he take it from CP0 or CP9 or something, or does he take it from a government ship? I remember the vagaries of it, but I can't remember specifically if he. All I know is he's going out of his way to get the devil fruit. He's not just like, oh, I'm attacking some Navy guys. No, he goes to those ships because he wants that devil fruit. So he knows that there's some sort of importance behind the fruit. But the thing is, if you follow the timeline of the story, chapter 1 takes place 10 years before the story begins. Okay, so Shanks wasn't a Yonko until 6 years later. Okay, we know this because it was revealed fairly recently in like maybe like 100 chapters ago that he became a Yonko, quote, 6 years ago. So that both tells us that he's far younger than the other Yonko, but also if the story is 12 years long at this point, 10 years before the story starts and then the 2-year time skip, that means that it's when he first either learned about / attained the fruit was 6 years before he became a Yonko. So it's not like he had this like universal grand knowledge of all things to know that the devil fruit is important. He knows how to read the poneglyphs or something. There's something about him that he knows that devil fruit is super duper important. So the second part, that's just the first point. The second point of this theory is, I think, at some point the world government makes the statement that the devil fruit has almost a mind of its own. It tries to like evade like certain parties, like the One Ring almost, and you're like, what the heck is this all about? Shanks perhaps thinks that it needs to go to a wielder of the will of D, right? So he gets the fruit, and then he's like, okay, I just need to find somebody whose dreams and goals align similarly with mine that I can feed this fruit to, because you don't want to give it to Blackbeard and then have Blackbeard be a bitch, and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I give this super powerful fruit to Blackbeard, right? So not that he ever would. Obviously him and Blackbeard have a past, but that's neither here nor there. So anyway, so let's assume that Shanks just makes the assumption that the Gum Gum fruit has to go to somebody with the will of D. So in the story, there's not very many characters who have the will of D. So his options are unbelievably limited. But guess what? Out of all of the crazy islands he could land at, he happens to like set up shop at this little tiny island in the East Blue that's like so inconsequential, that happens to have a kid that is a Monkey D Luffy. Like that in itself is also crazy, because even though this is 6 years before he becomes a Yonko, I'm pretty sure it's remember there is a point where
Hawkeye tells him, I was shocked when you came back from the East Blue and you were missing an arm. So Hawkeye was like amongst the characters who were like, oh yeah, we know who Shanks is and he's a powerful dude. Um, and so when you take that into consideration, you're like, well, wait a second. He the Islanders may have known him well, but I'm pretty sure he knew to go to that island on purpose, and then quote unquote accidentally leave this super duper high valued fruit in this unlocked chest so that some rambunctious nonsense stupid kid opens it up and eats it. Like the crazy like levels of insanity that have to lead up to this point. You're like, there's no way it's all accidental. Why would they bring this incredibly important fruit onto land with them? Wouldn't they like keep it in like a safe on their ship and like guard it? If like the CP are like designed, like they have like probably like a whole department whose role is to either protect slash attain this fruit. Like you should have it under lock and key at all times, but he leaves it unlocked on the bar table or not table countertop, and Luffy eats it because Luffy's an idiot. And you're like, I don't know. I knowing how good of an author, a writer that Oda is, it doesn't make any sense if it's accidental. It has to be. Shanks knew what he was doing. He went to that island. He built up a reputation with them. Maybe they were like suspicious of pirates, but Shanks had like built his reputation with them that he's a nice, easygoing dude before they allowed him to like really get along well with the village people. For him to build up like this sort of hero complex in Luffy, so that Luffy just constantly chased after him later on in life, like. Shanks is either the biggest genius in the world or he's just as much of an idiot as Luffy is. But we have seen things that Shanks has done that you're like, Shanks isn't an idiot. Like he's extremely thoughtful, right? We don't even know his first name. We don't know if he's a D. We know nothing about him. All we know is his name is Shanks. He's like the hero of the main character, and all we know about him is his name is Shanks, and he's captain of another. Like, it's crazy how little we know about this guy. So anyway, when he loses his arm and saving Luffy, I think it's because he knows how important the Gum Gum fruit is inside the user of a not the user, but inside a D holder. Because honestly, if Luffy died in that moment, then he would have to wait for the fruit to reappear in reality, because of course every fruit of a death, the fruit of a dead wielder returns to being in a couple years, right? That's what happened with Ace's fruit. So he'd have to wait for it to regrow, and then he'd have to go and hunt for it again. So he was probably willing to sacrifice his arm just to save Luffy. And honestly, at this point in the story, I mean, it's possible that he cared a lot for Luffy, but it's also insanely possible that he didn't. And I'm not trying to paint Shanks as a bad guy. I'm trying to paint Shanks as a person with a lot of motive. A lot of motive. The reason why I'm saying this is because, honestly, the king of the pirates gave him that straw hat. That would be, and that straw hat, of course, is at the Royal Mary, I don't know how to pronounce it. The stupid saints area up on the red line. There's a giant straw hat up there. Obviously, there's some insane importance behind this straw hat. And guess what? He just gives it to Luffy. Some stupid kid who now has a stupid devil fruit that prevents him from swimming. So, like, us, the readers, we're sitting there reading this and we're like, oh man, Luffy's the main character? I want to follow the Shanks guy. And meanwhile, Shanks has like master planned this whole thing, and he's like, "All right, now Luffy has the devil fruit power, he has the will of D, and now he wants to go out to sea no matter what as a pirate, so he can follow in my footsteps and become a great pirate." You know what I mean? Like, what the heck? Um, and so you might think, okay, so 6 years later, so in the last 6 years, he's been a Yonko. What has he done as a Yonko? He's probably gone around to do some investigation to like gain knowledge, but he's also done things like I said, meet with those 5 old guys. Why does he meet with them? How does he know to meet with them? Why are they even entertaining an audience with him? You might say it's because he's a Yonko, but these 5 old guys are like, who knows? They might be 800 years old. They might be like unbelievably powerful human beings. So, and even if they aren't, they probably have some sort of military to protect them. Though they don't seem to ever have any guards anywhere, which basically means that they themselves must be powerful. So, if Shanks enters the room and they entertain him, what connection does he have with these people? Like, honestly, they might not. I mean, on the other hand, it's entirely possible, and I am actually willing to accept this. It could be that they're just what do you call that? Peacekeepers. They might not actually want to fight, but some of them have swords. Like, I don't understand these 5 old guys. Like wrap my brain into a pretzel. I don't understand what their point is, and what their motive is. I don't know anything about them. But the fact that Shanks can get an audience with them just by walking, he doesn't get invited. He just walks into the room out of the shadows, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then they listen to him. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what? What are you talking about? What? Who's Shanks? Like, oh my gosh. So I'm sort of skipping ahead here, but it's there's just a lot of craziness surrounding Shanks. So he sacrifices his arm. Let's go back to that. And then in the 12 years since then, he's watched Luffy with Gum Gum powers, but nothing else, and finally learns that death opens the door to the Nika model activation. So, however Shanks attains his knowledge, he learns somehow that Luffy needs to die. And so what does he do? Oh, that's what they're called. They're called the Gorosei. I have it written down, and I didn't see it. Oh, I'm so ashamed of myself. So anyway, so he goes to the Gorosei and convinces them, I'll put the chapter up on subtitles here because I can't remember what chapter it's at. But he goes to the Gorosei and has some unknown conversation with them. Unknown because it cuts away before he can talk for the audience to learn, right? I think that he learns that the Nika model activation is death, and so he goes to the Gorosei and says, "Hey, I agree with you." And he's just lying to them straight up. He just lies to them and says, "Look, I agree with you. Luffy needs to die. He's too dangerous. I would recommend that you send some CP0 to kill him, assassinate the guy." And so at this point in time, Luffy's in Wano fighting Kaido. And so the CP0 comes in and interferes with the fight, and this actually happens just enough to distract Luffy and give Kaido a killing blow on Luffy. That actually happens. The CP0 guy comes out of nowhere to distract Luffy for an instant, and then he gets killed by Kaido. And then the Nika awakening occurs. Like, what? Like, why is everyone just chalking this up to like happenstance? Like, Shanks orchestrated the whole thing to bamboozle the government, because I don't know if he hates the government or what, but for some reason he wants Luffy to get unbelievably strong. Is it to stand in opposition of Blackbeard or the Navy or the world government? I have no idea. Shanks's intentions are unbelievable. I don't know what the guy's doing, but like when I try to like logic out all these different Shanks choices and decisions, this theory is the only one that makes sense to me. Every single time I like try to elaborate on the theory, or like, oh, maybe it's this way instead. No, it doesn't make any sense to me. This theory makes the most sense to me, and I don't know why Shanks would do it. I just don't know why. Like, the explanation of how he got his hands on the Gum Gum fruit, why he selected Luffy, like all these different explanations that I've set up until now make sense to me. But as to why he did it in the first place, what's his ultimate goal? I don't know. I even did like weird breakdowns of Shanks, like, oh well, he's called red-haired Shanks. Let's look at every red-haired character, and there's some Skypiea people. There's like Kid, and Kid has a scar over the same eye that Shanks does, and I'm like, that's just a crazy coincidence. It's gotta be. But then you look at the other red-haired characters, and guess what? They all have, look at this, red-haired One Piece characters, and you get this cool little mock-up of all these different characters, and you're like, well, wait a second, like, Shanks and Kid and the two Wano guy, or not Wano, Skypiea guys, all have weird tattoos or scars around the same eye. Why is it the same eye? Is that just a crazy coincidence that all these red-haired characters have a weird marking around the same eye? Like, I'm going insane a little bit. I've got to be. Even Shanks' daughter from that Red movie has her hair covering the same sided eye. Like, it's all the same. There's a Navy officer here who has a Band-Aid on her left eye, which is not really anything. There's this character, Viola, I think it is. Her hair's covering her left eye. Why the left? Is Oda just obsessed with the left? Is it just coincidence? I don't understand. You look at, what's his face, Sanji's brother. He has the left eye visible. Like, geez. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. Who is Shanks? You go down like crazy little like tunnels of stupidity when you're trying to break apart something that you don't know anything about. So there's so little Shanks information, and I can't get over how, like, other than his Yonko authority, I don't know why the world government, like, he has weird strange pull with them. I think he meets them twice in the story, right? There's 2 different times that he meets with them, and I don't know. I don't understand. What's it all lead to? Why Shanks? Why the devil fruit? The devil fruit is all 3 types, isn't it? Someone please explain to me why the devil fruit that Luffy has isn't all 3 types. Because, like, honestly, if you thought it was the Paramecia type, the ancient zone reveal wouldn't make any sense to you. You're just like, no, that's his awakened form. Like, everyone takes on, like, different properties when they're awakened. Like, why would that make him automatically a Zoan type? But if that automatically makes him a Zoan type, then the Logia explanation makes, like, complete sense. So you're like, well, he has to be all 3. And what does that mean? What are the implications if it is all 3? Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it's just like a crazy coincidence that I'm, like, latching onto like crazy. Stupid One Piece.